270 BC through 200 BC. In 264, Roman Carthage fought the First Punic War that was started by Appius Claudius Caudex, because he wanted to take Sicily from Carthage. Appius Claudius Caudex was a consul in 264. He was ridiculed for starting the war, thus he was given the name Caudex, meaning blockhead. The First Punic War lasted from 264 BC to 241 BC. It was fought over power and control in the Mediterranean, mainly Sicily. The leader of Carthage was Hamilcar Barca. He was the father of Hannibal. Rome ended up winning and expanded its power into Sicily. In 264 BC, the first gladiator games were held in the Colosseum. This is a major part of their culture and history. Now for the government. During this time period, the power of Rome was called the Roman Republic, not the Roman Empire. There were two consuls that were elected to run the Republic for a whole year, but it was rare to have a consul appointed twice. A consul can be compared to a modern-day governor or senator. Out of nowhere, in 225 BC, the Gauls invaded Rome in the north, but were defeated 3 years later due to leadership by Lucius Aemilius Pappus, who led the Roman forces. He was also a consul in 225. The Gauls were hopeless with no assistance in battle, so they realized the enemy of their enemy is their friend, and they teamed up with Carthage and their leader, Hannibal, and invaded Italy through the north to start the Second Punic War. They won many battles, but never defeated them. Hannibal ran out of resources after winning battles in the beginning. Rome ended up winning in 201 BC. While the Second Punic War was going on, Rome also fought Macedon in the First Macedonian War in 214. Rome allied with Attalus I of Pergamon in 211. They fought Philip V of Macedon. This war ended up pointless as it resulted in a stalemate between the forces. Now for the expansion. The Roman Republic in 270 BC had the entirety of Italy. But at the end of this era, in 200 BC, they gained Spain and the islands in the Mediterranean, including Sicily.
(200 BC through 140 BC). Philip V, king of Macedon, struggled to expand the land of Macedonia due to the emerging Roman power. In 200 BC, the Romans declared war on Macedon, arguing that they were intervening to protect the freedom of the Greeks. This war became known as the Second Macedonian War. Philip V and his Macedonian forces were defeated at the Battle of Scythopolis in 197 BC. He was defeated by Titus Quinctius Flaminius, who was a Roman politician and general of the Roman army. The Roman rule expanded with this victory as they gained the land of the Kingdom of Macedonia along with Greece, Thrace, and Asia Minor. Philip V was forced to become a Roman ally. After Philip V's defeat and his death in 179 BC, his son Perseus took the throne. One of his first acts on becoming king was to renew the treaty with Rome that his father left behind. But King Perseus had other plans. He interfered with Roman affairs and avoided the Roman ambassadors to Macedonia. The Romans declared war on Macedonia in 171 BC after the Macedonian army expanded. The Romans were afraid of the balance of power in Greece, and King Perseus was also accused of violating state laws and conditions of peace with Rome. Throughout this Third Macedonian War, the Romans struggled with finding a strategy to successfully invade Macedonia. But in the end, in 168 BC, the Roman army defeated Perseus and his army. 300,000 Macedonian citizens were enslaved, and this war marked the end of the Macedon kingdom. The Fourth Macedonian War was fought between the Roman Republic and Macedon leader Andriscus, who fought to re-establish the old Macedonian kingdom. The war was fought from 150 BC to 148 BC. In 148 BC, the Macedonian defeat meant that Macedonia officially became a Roman province. Antiochus III the Great ruled over the Seleucid Empire from 222 BC to 187 BC. In 196 BC, King Antiochus attacked the Roman city of Smyrna. This conflict eventually led to the Roman-Seleucid War. The war lasted from 192 BC to 188 BC. The continuous expansion of the Roman Republic in the Seleucid Empire was the main cause of the war. In the end, the Seleucids were defeated, and in the Treaty of Apamea, the Seleucids were forced to give up the rest of Asia Minor. Annibal Barca was a Punic Carthaginian military commander and considered one of the greatest military commanders in history. It has been told that Annibal taught the Romans the meaning of fear. Annibal became such a figure of terror that whenever disaster struck, the Roman senators would exclaim, "Annibal ante portas," meaning Annibal is at the gates, to express their fear or anxiety. Annibal poisoned himself in 183 BC to avoid capture by the Romans. Scipio Aemilianus was a very powerful consul of the Roman Republic. Scipio was the leader of the Roman army during the Third Punic War, which lasted from 149 BC to 146 BC. The war evolved soon after there were disagreements with the treaties left in the Second Punic War. The Romans felt as though the Carthaginians should be allowed no Italian allies, and they must continually pay off their debt to Rome. The Battle of Carthage was the main battle within the conflict. Scipio and his army completely destroyed the city of Carthage by the spring of 146 BC. The Carthaginian land became known as the Roman province of Africa, and Roman rule slowly began to emerge in northern Africa. As for the government, in 197 BC, the number of quaestors was raised from 8 to 12. In the Roman Republic, the quaestors supervised the treasury and financial affairs. The number of praetors was also raised from 4 to 6. The praetors were elected officials who were often commanders of the army, governors, or judges. In 180 BC, the Lex Velia Annalis was passed. This set of Roman laws set the minimum age for elected military and political officials and established an interval of 2 years between elections. The permanent court of Lex Calpurnia was established in 149 BC.
(140 BC to 70 BC). The birth of the Roman general and dictator L. Cornelius Sulla in Rome in 138 BC. 135 BC to 132 BC. Slave revolts in Sicily. 131 BC. A new set of laws passed by the tribune G. Papyrus Carbo enacted secret balloting in Rome for the first time. 129 BC. The province of Illyria is annexed into the empire. Annexation of the Roman Asia province in 129 BC. In 123 BC, General Q. Sertorius was born, and he is a Roman rebel general. 113 to 101 BC, Germanic Cimbri and Teutones invade Roman territories. 112 to 106 BC, the Jugurthine War, and Jugurtha sacks Cirta. The Jugurthine War. It was between Rome and Jugurtha of Numidia, a kingdom of the North African coast. Romans defeated Jugurtha, and the war takes its name from the Berber king, Jugurtha. 104 BC, the death of King Jugurtha. 104 BC to 100 BC, the Second Sicilian Slave War. It was an unsuccessful slave uprising against the Roman Republic on the island of Sicily. 101 BC, Sicilia is annexed as a province of Rome. 100 BC, the birth of Julius Caesar. 91 BC, the Italian city of Asculum massacres its Roman citizens and prepares for Roman reprisals. The Social War was a war waged from 90 BC to 88 BC between the Roman Republic and several other cities in Italy, which prior to the war had been Roman allies for centuries. The war began when the Italian allies revolted, and by 88 BC, Rome made concessions to their allies, which eventually ended the war. First Mithratic War, 89 BC to 85 BC. This was a war challenging Rome's expanding empire and rule over the Greek world. In this conflict, the kingdom of Pontus and many Greek cities rebelling against Rome were led by Mithrates VI of Pontus against the Roman Republic and the kingdom of Bithynia. The war lasted 5 years and ended in a Roman victory, which forced Mithridates to abandon all of his conquests and return to Pontus. The conflict with Mithrates would continue in 2 further Mithratic wars. 81 BC to 79 BC, Cornelius Sulla was appointed dictator and reforms the constitution in Rome, but he resigned. The Sertorian War lasted from 80 BC to 72 BC. It was a conflict of the Roman civil wars in which a coalition of Iberians and Romans fought against representatives of the regime against Sulla. It takes its name from Quintus Sertorius, the main leader of the opposition to Sulla. The war is notable for Sertorius' successful use of guerrilla warfare. The war ended after Sertorius was assassinated by Marcus Perpenna, who was then promptly defeated by Pompey. '78 BC, Cornelius Sulla died in a villa outside the city of Puteoli. In 75 BC, 25-year-old Julius Caesar was sailing the Aegean Sea when he was kidnapped by Sicilian pirates. The pirates who captured him initially asked for a ransom of 20 talents, which is about $600,000 today. According to sources, rather than send his associates off to gather the silver, Julius Caesar instead laughed at the pirates and demanded they ask for 50 talents instead of 20, because the ransom would be too small. 74 BC to 64 BC, the Third Mithratic War. This was the longest and last of 3 Mithratic wars fought between Mithridates VI of Pontus and his allies against the Roman Republic. The war ended in a defeat for Mithridates, ending the Pontic kingdom and resulting in the kingdom of Armenia becoming an allied client state of Rome. 73 BC to 71 BC, the Slave War of Spartacus. Spartacus was one of the slave leaders in the Third Civil War, a major slave uprising against the Roman Republic. He was a former gladiator and an accomplished military leader. The slaves lacked military training, but they displayed a skillful use of available and local materials, and they used tactics when facing the disciplined Roman armies. They spent the whole winter of 73 to 72 BC training. The vast majority of Spartacus's forces were killed on the battlefield. 70 BC, the kingdom of Pontus is annexed and created into a new province by L. Licinius Lucullus.